Hey, it's Brett, and this is Brett and Some Books. Today we're continuing the plot to seize the White House by Jules Archer. This is Chapter 11 of Part 2. With America once more at peace and Congress slashing military funds drastically, the future of the Marine Corps looked bleak. Butler was indignant when Marine Corps headquarters failed to protest its reduction to a mere appendage of the Navy. In disgust, he announced his decision to retire and wrote his father urging that John Lejeune be appointed the new commandant in 1920 to save the Corps. Thomas Butler saw eye to eye with his son on the need to preserve the Marine Corps' independence and agreed that Lejeune, who had distinguished himself in the Battle of Meuse-Argonne, was the man to fight for it in Congress. So on January 30th, 1920, Lejeune became the new commandant. He, in turn, coaxed Butler into staying on in command of Quantico to help in the struggle to save the Corps. To dramatize the Corps' need of funds for modernization, Butler held summer maneuvers that restaged the Battle of the Wilderness between Grant and Lee. On the first day it was fought as it had happened. The next day it was restaged with a significant difference: the use of modern equipment. The presence of President Warren G. Harding, a Civil War buff, helped win widespread news coverage. Butler's shrewd tactic was highly effective in getting a reluctant Congress to vote adequate funds for the Corps. It was a 40-mile march from Quantico to the battleground. As usual, wearing no insignia to identify him, Butler marched at the head of the column, walking his horse, carrying full gear on his back in the hot July sun. When one soldier faltered, Butler told him gently, "Son, I'm more than 20 years older than you, but we're going to do this together." He said later, "I wanted to show them that they could force themselves to do things that would be necessary in war." And they all did. His troops never learned that following one such battlefield exercise, the 40-year-old commander experienced a minor heart attack for which a doctor prescribed rest and digitalis. The word that spread through Quantico was that it was useless to try to fall out of a hike because the old man would just pick up your pack, add it to his own, and hike right alongside you with it. The humdrum garrison life of peacetime, with no alarums and excursions to divert him, took its toll of Butler's temper. "I was itching for a scrap. Action. Anything with a snap to it," he admitted later. But he was never irascible in any matter that pertained to ailing Marines who had served under him. In August 1920, a private wrote him, "I have been a patient in St. Elizabeth's Hospital for the Insane since September 20th, 1918. I'm writing to ask if you will arrange to have me transferred to one of the institutions in Philadelphia so that I can be close to the folks at home." "I will look into the matter for you and let you know," replied gently. "You can be assured that everything will be done for your comfort, for you are one of the prize soldiers of the Marine Corps, and we all like you very much." He grew increasingly incensed at what he considered the ingratitude of the nation toward its veterans. Once the war crisis was over and Americans felt safe, he reflected, the shattered heroes of yesterday were ignored as the bums of today. He was particularly embittered by the indifference of big business toward the men in uniform who had so often been called upon to spill blood for corporate profits. The profiteering of the Pennsylvania Railroad and the price they charged for transporting troops led him to write to his father angrily, "I am at a loss to understand why the Pennsylvania people are so antagonistic to men in uniform. The railroad can haul civilians from Washington to Philadelphia and back every Sunday for $3.78 and want nearly $14 to haul soldiers. These Pennsylvania people are a lot of damned hogs, and I hope that something will happen to them." Butler raised Marine Corps morale by developing a great football team that became the talk of the sports world. and began building a sports stadium with volunteer Marine labor and with cement contributed by cement companies. Proliferating veterans troops vied with each other for the distinction of adding his name to their letterheads. He tactfully declined invitations to join, offering his view that all such groups must be non-political and should never be heard on the floors of Congress. In June 1923, he sent regrets to the Marine Corps Veterans Association explaining, "I have very decided views on associations, and I'm not a member of any but the American Legion, and most inactive at that, only joining it because General Lejeune requested me to do so." He considered the Legion too political and undemocratic, with leaders who used it as a mouthpiece for big business interests. Late in 1923, Butler's career took an unorthodox twist. W. Freeland Kendrick, the new mayor of Philadelphia, urged him to take a leave from the Marines to become the city's director of public safety. The job was that of a super cop, in charge of the police and firemen, with the task of smashing the links between crime and politics in Philadelphia. Under Prohibition, the city had become one of the most corrupt municipalities of the country. Over 8,000 places sold bootleg liquor without fear for prosecution. Gangsters ran wide-open gambling joints and brothels. Robberies, holdups, and other crimes were soaring. All attempts to clean up the city of brotherly love had failed because of a profitable alliance among gangsters, speakeasy operators, and crooked ward bosses who bribed and controlled the police. Kendrick, a conservative Republican politician, had been elected mayor on Law and Order campaign, and he was now under heavy pressure to keep his pledge. He was advised to bring in an outsider, preferably a military man, who could not be bought, bluffed, or bullied to head the police. Brigadier General Smedley Butler, now a vigorous 42 and colorful war hero with an impressive list of credits and who's who in the services, seemed a perfect choice to please the voters. He had even police experience organizing the Haiti Gendarmerie. But Butler declined the job. On November 21st, he wrote to Kendrick, "While this position would appeal to me very greatly if I believed there were the slightest chance of success, I am convinced that the present political conditions existing would throw away the work of a lifetime in a perfectly hopeless undertaking." He was relieved when the Navy ordered him to report for orders to the scouting fleet, but Kendrick and the Republican Party of Pennsylvania now needed him desperately to still a storm of public criticism. So Kendrick, Congressman Bill Vair, and Pennsylvania's 2 senators went to the White House to plead with President Calvin Coolidge that Butler be given a year's leave of absence to clean up Philadelphia. Only a man with Butler's reputation for total honesty and the ability to discipline men while capturing their imagination and winning their loyalty, they told Coolidge, could reorganize the Philadelphia police force. The president finally agreed and sent word to Butler that the White House would like him to tackle the job in the interest of good government. His father warned him against it as a political quicksand, but Butler did not see how he could refuse a mandate from both the people of Philadelphia and the president. His reluctant consent brought wandering letters from old comrades all over the world, many of whom imagined that he had resigned from the Corps. Butler assured them that it was only temporary. "This job is a terrible one, and I will probably be cut to pieces," he wrote to Lieutenant Colonel H.L. Roosevelt in Paris. "On January 7th, I will be sworn in as a Philadelphia cop, for better or worse."